Yes, Marty.
Are we disbanded? The subcommittee?
Never been asked that point.
Are we released from our duty? Because
I think I would. Tom wants to be.
I think
no.
I officially beg to be released.
I would say at this point we are until further notice,
Okay.
or another one is formed. Yes, thank you for asking, Marty. Appreciate it. Vicki?
Item 9B, receive third quarter financial update report as of March 31st, 2018, and adopt resolution approving third quarter budget amendment for the 2017-18 operating and capital budget.
Council, thank you for the opportunity to review the third quarter financial update report as of March 31st. The third quarter report does provide a solid trend for revenue and expenditures for the current fiscal year, and this report is important because simultaneously we are working, as the city manager indicated, on the 18-19 budget and determining a year-end estimate for 17-18 is a significant part of that budget process. I said that it is a solid trend. I would point out that as it relates to property tax, we still have only received one half of the property tax reflected in this report. There is the April payment that we have received but is not reflected in the report. Things as the significant franchise fee that the city receives from PG&E is not received or has been received in April, so again is not reflected in the report, and they are some relatively big numbers. So while this report is significant, there are outstanding items that lead to not knowing the exact outcomes. So the brief summary shows that general fund revenues, and I'll show general fund expenditures in a second here, are matching very close to what one would expect 9 months into the budget, and can project for most of them theoretically close to the 75% of the year, depending on the actual cash flow of the revenues. So total general fund revenues are projected to equal a little over $43 million, and expenditures are projected to be at $45.6 million. Just wanted to reiterate the point, while we're looking at the revenues and expenditures individually here, the budget as approved by the council did have a gap between revenues and expenditures of about $1.2 million. It is a requirement that the city council adopt a balanced budget, and the 17-18 budget, despite this gap between revenues and expenditures, was balanced by the use of one-time monies, an appropriate measure in balancing a budget. The one-time revenues essentially came from under expenditures that occurred in the prior year. I reviewed the city revenues in some detail at the City Council's April 30th study session, so I will not go into great detail tonight. Would just, in very quick summary, would say that would expect that the revenues will come in at the end of the year very close to the budget. Property tax I would expect to be very slightly up from budget. Sales tax would expect to be somewhat down. I think, again, we had a discussion about sales tax last week. I think just one point of note is if you look over the last 4 quarters, the last 2 years, there's been about an 8% reduction in sales tax revenue. So we did discuss sales tax, and I think while for 17-18 it'll be down somewhat, a relatively small number, it is still an area of some concern. It's not clearly shown here, but I just wanted to point out that general fund revenues, departmental revenues are up, and this is included in the staff report, are up about $362,000 compared to 16-17, and higher revenues include police parking fines, building permit, and community development plan check revenues. Looking at the expenditure side, you see that the expenditures are about 70% in the current year compared to 70% last year. I would point out that the budget is up compared to 16-17, so it is 70% of a little higher number. I think the only other comment that might stand out to the council is if in looking at the internal service funds, you see that expenditures in the self-insurance fund are significantly higher than the budget, and there's a couple of items. The general liability premium paid to ABAG was substantially higher than the budget. Claim costs in the workers' comp area are running higher than the budget, but the main reason for the increase is about $500,000 in costs associated with the truck collision here at the senior center are being charged to the self-insurance fund, and would expect all of the costs that are shown in this fund will be reimbursed through the third-party insurance. Also included in the staff report, with the staff report, is a resolution related to or for a budget amendment. There are really 5 changes to the budget in the third quarter. 2 of them are related to salary and benefit increases, either through approved MOU changes or employment contract. These items were previously approved in March by the City Council. There are also additional appropriations for the Bel Air parking lot improvement, street light pole replacement, and downtown parking lot resurfacing for capital projects. Each of those capital projects, each of those previously approved by the council in either February or March of 2018. With those brief comments, I'd be glad to answer any questions the council has.
Questions of Mr. O'Leary?
I think first of all, I think I'll make a comment. So thank you for your report, Jim O'Leary. I just wanted to say that there's, one of the things from the study session, and for those who weren't at the study session either, is that, we're not seeing the increase in sales tax. If you look at the numbers, and you provided this report over the last 5 years, it's pretty flat. In fact, currently we're at like 3% less than we expected to be at this time of year. So, sales tax is a big hit that we're going to continue to see with online sales, et cetera. And as you mentioned in your report as well, that the increase in PERS. So there's some additional things, and I guess the question is, at this point, here's your third quarter, what are some changes we can make going forward to actually not be in a deficit at the end of the year? And what are some recommendations?
That was to you.
Well,
Well, again, the city council approved a balanced budget, and I'm projecting with the revenues and the expenditures as approved and as we're projecting for the year end, I think the revenues are going to be very close to the budgeted revenues. It's not clear really from just looking at the data because some of the revenues, as I indicated, some big ones don't come in until April, so you don't see it. But I mentioned simultaneously we are preparing the 18-19 budget, and the very preliminary numbers when we're looking at the estimate for 17-18 shows significant, and by significant I'm talking about $1 million, in expenditures being controlled less than the budget. So I think if your question was, does the city council need to take actions today in order to end up in a balanced budget, my message to you is the budget will continue to be balanced based on the council approval. At the end of the year, June 30th, it will in fact meet that and it will be balanced. So if there's a desire to take further action, that's for the council to decide, but out of necessity, there is not a necessity to balance the budget. It is going to be balanced.
Thank you.
It's going to remain balanced.
Any questions? Marty, Mike? Is there any action from council?
I'll introduce the resolution approving the budget amendments.
Councilmember Salazar,
Aye.
Councilmember Medina,
Aye.
Councilmember O'Connell,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Davis.
Aye.
Mayor Medina.
Aye.